Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again with another new build, and this time around it is the Shocknova Doryani's Proto Inquisitor. I wanted to play around with Shocknova for a while, just last time I did it, it hit really hard, felt pretty good in endgame to some extent, and I wanted to play around with Doryani's Proto this league when Arch Nemesis is at its worst, aka existing all over the place, and see how it feels. So I tried to make sure I built a bit more into some tankiness this time around on the Inquisitor, and using Melting of Flesh, using a bunch of armor, and a talisman. Since recombinators exist, you can make some okay talismans that actually serve the purpose that they're supposed to for lightning as fire or cold, and then some good stats this time around. So with all that together, decided to try and make a self-cast Shocknova Inquisitor, and it's worked out pretty well. It's nothing too special on the clear side of things. I mean, Shocknova's just okay for all of that. If I invested in a bunch more area and some more cast speed and all that sort of shit, maybe it'd be better, but it isn't too bad at the moment anyway. But Shocknova does have the added benefit of potentially hitting twice, so it can hit really hard if you overlap the rings with the right positioning on your character or your Shocknova and bosses, so it can hit really damn hard. And the idea is basically to just build super tanky so I can actually take some hits and then position myself nicely. But at the same time, I've also got some other interesting technology with some Sentinel crap. For example, the helm has a Sentinel modifier that your lightning damage can freeze. So this time around I'm using the Call of the Void chill ring so that we can chill everything, and it does reduce damage back to us, and as well as that, using Sentinel's Sentinel hat mod of lightning damage can freeze. So I'm chilling and freezing everything, which makes it a much nicer feeling Doryani's Proto build than any in the past, since it's just historically lightning damage, and that means you can shock some stuff, and that's basically it. So there's not much corpse explosion or cool effects, which does usually take away from a Doryani's Proto build just a little bit. And I guess I forgot to mention, if you don't know what Doryani's Proto is, it's a chest slot that gives all monsters around you the same lightning resist as you, which means you can use that to your advantage by having 0 lightning resist or even negative lightning resist. So currently the character does have minus 150 lightning resist, and that means everything around me is going to have minus 150 lightning resist. So it saves you having to build into penetration or using the Inquisitor node for ignore resists, and this is just a small example of what our damage can look like from Tempest Shield with no links whatsoever. So if I just go AFK in a ritual, for example, Tempest Shield on just no links at level 18 or some shit can actually kill shit. So it's surprising kind of how tanky you can be, and also the fact that Tempest Shield can actually do some damage. I feel like if you actually linked it up and cared more about it for some reason, then you could kind of AFK most bosses pretty comfortably, but yeah, to what end? What's really the point? Not quite sure. Otherwise it looks kind of cool. Tempest Shield is basically just there to give me spell block. Regardless, it's not really there for damage, but since I do have capped block and capped spell block with glancing blows, that it just means that I proc a lot of Tempest Shields, and yeah, it works out well enough. Otherwise, yeah, there's not really too much else to mention. I mean, it's kind of just a basic self-cast character with some nice recombinated gear, which I'll go over in a sec. I mean, some of the gear is pretty damn good. It is just recombinators doing recombinator shit, and that's why I feel more comfortable doing this sort of stuff or gearing this league than previous ones. First of all, there's uber bosses to shoot for. Second of all this gear is attainable to anyone with just the right coin toss, and it's all I'm doing, taking usually 2 relatively cheap things and mashing them together, and it works out half the time. Anyone can do that. So yeah, in any case, let's get into it, and I'll show you how I've built it so far. So here's the current character, still only level 86 at the moment. Lightning res equal to DPS, because it's going to have negative lightning res, and wasn't too sold on the fact that I'd get damage, given that I was actually planning to take some tanky nodes and all that. And it's also Shock Nova, like, bit of an unknown factor still, but I do think it's coming together fairly nice. Those are the current defenses, as you can see, in minus 145 lightning resist. And then 90 to fire and cold resist. Bit of armor, nothing too huge, but with flasks up, it goes up a bit more, and I'm still probably going to get a bit more regardless, given just a few more levels and a few more fine-tuning to the build. But once again, the item is that, so you can only deal lightning damage, no cold, fire, chaos, none of that. And your special mod here is nearby enemies have lightning resist equal to yours. It is pretty close to screen wide, like it's got a good radius on it, so don't feel too scared about that. Otherwise, you got armor applies to lightning damage taken from hits. Lightning resist does not affect lightning damage taken. So in essence, to try and mitigate some of this from degens and from hits, you do get a bunch of armor, which helps out, and then also a talisman with lightning damage from hits taken as cold or as fire. So I just grabbed a talisman that had like some life, maybe some crit multi, and then mashed it together with a +1, mashed it together with something else. So it took 2 or 3 recombinators to get to this stage, but I did have a basic one before that that was going to be good enough too. So yeah, just a few recombinators, and you can transfer regular mods onto talisman mods. If you're unaware, with the recombinators you can use corrupted items and move mods onto corrupted items. The item will still in turn be corrupted if it chooses this base to move everything onto. Yet to anoint it properly, so ignore the current anoint. Otherwise, that's mostly the special stuff that's going on in the build. Like I said, the hat is using something I've never used before, which is a Sentinel mod. It seems somewhat rare. I just bought this hat off the market for 100C. Your lightning damage can freeze, and that just means that we can now freeze enemies, which is pretty powerful with Shock Nova, because Shock Nova does have good hit damage, and this type of a build does have good hit damage, so it should, justify itself for a defensive mechanic throughout the build. And then it also had a temple mod on there, I guess, so a bit of extra fizz taken as fire. Then running, well, since I am running a melding jewel right here, melding of the flesh, currently it's a -70, it goes down to -80, which would give me even less lightning res, but I can't fix the other res at the moment. Either way, basically we're taking away even more lightning res thanks to this, and then also just creating fire resist, max fire resist as our highest peak for fire, for max resists, and then you can equal that to your cold resist as well. So I've gone out of my way to just get max fire, so I've got purity of fire, or I've got a few extra max res here, max res there, and also a shield that I crafted. So once again, recombinators to the rescue. What did I do with this? I rolled a few shields from Rog that had max fire res or max cold res, max lightning res. It doesn't matter, because you can change that through harvest resist changes. I think it was lightning res to begin with. Rog gave me a few shields that had that sort of thing, and usually just looking for something else as a suffix, and then bought shield that had 2 max all res and like a life roll or some shit on the market, and then smash it together and got some pretty tasty suffixes in the form of 5 total max fire res and some block, which means that I cap out my glancing blows block just from this shield, not needing any more aside from that. I'm also trying to get a bit of extra armor and evasion, armor and energy shield and life, and it worked out well enough. It is a crap base though, so it doesn't have much armor and energy shield, but it's still pretty good. I'm happy with it for sure. Running this thing, just chill stuff and make it deal less damage, and it's a good ring otherwise. Just a basic ring with some minus mana, because I am trying to use mana for this build. We then have boots, the very basic once again, but cannot be chilled, lots of resists, and 2 max fire as an implicit. Then grab some gloves. that have a temple mod, a focus mod, and mashed those together. So just finished off suffixes basically, and that worked out well enough with recombinating. Using an Immortal Flesh for the first time in like 6 years, it works well enough just overall as a belt because we are heavily regen based, and then also minus 25 Ellie res, which is even more minus to my lightning. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know, it's okay. And then a wand. So there was a wand on the market that just had +1 all spell, +1 lightning with a spare prefix, and it was 2 exalts, and it hadn't sold in a while. So I was like, hey, that's probably a bait, but messaged the guy and it sold. Sweet. So then I just locked prefixes and did a Veiled Orb, hit a Veil on the suffix, and then just finished it off with a multi-mod. And I actually made another one exactly like this one by buying an all-skill profane for 50C, I think it was, and then I had an all-lightning, mashed them together, and then, yeah, it actually was really cheap at the moment. All-skill wands were pretty expensive early on in the league. I think there's just too many and no one cares at the moment, so it's not that hard to make a double plus skill, I think, but it's still a bit of RNG, of course. And then, yeah, you get a spare prefix or whatever, and you can just finish off suffixes and yep, currently just got the focus mod and all of that shit. This is the type of stuff would be unthinkable for me to use in the past, but right now it's like all too realistic, so why not get into it? So yeah, that's that. And then my links at the moment are Shock Nova, Anomalous, just for the ring that does a bit more damage for shock. Added Lightning, Awaken, Intensify, Spell Echo, Inspiration, and Crit Damage. Currently my mana cost is 45. I can do an alt qual inspiration for even less mana cost, but a lot of the mana cost is getting mitigated thanks to using forbidden jewels to steal fanaticism. So I wouldn't normally do this, but I wanted to kind of like meme the biggest possible output in a small window in this build. So I took fanaticism, which means that roughly every 4 seconds, you know, when you just shield charge around a lot, you can proc your fanaticism, and that gives you a lot more cast speed and also makes a bigger area and also takes away our mana cost essentially. So as you can see, my cast looks something like that. With fanaticism, it then goes something like that. And it has no mana. So a lot of the time that's fixing itself. I've got a bit of regen, but I probably still want the alt quality inspiration, which is super expensive, but it'll be another 10% reduced mana. Otherwise, I do have some reduced mana over here, and a bit of mana regen and stuff. So we do have a Thread of Hope, minus 20 res, because that's what we want. This Thread of Hope lets me grab Iron Will, all of this, and Glancing Blows, and just 1 point of precision. So it's not too bad of a use for an Iron Will, Thread of Hope. We otherwise have Unwavering over here, picked up a Watcher's Eye with just zealotry stuff. There are lots of useful Watcher's Eyes, though, for Determination and Period of Fire and all kinds of shit, but at the moment, just doing this, give me a bit more damage with zealotry and Divine Blessing. And then lastly, I think that's it, actually, just all those unique jewels. Maybe I didn't mention one. Now it looks about right. Yep. Okay. So yeah, otherwise the tree, I don't know, it's getting some spell block and getting some crit and unleash, and yeah, it's just a passive tree, you know, is what it is, except I'm going down this way for the first time in a league or some shit, just to get more max res to make melding work even better. We'll be picking up a few more life nodes and armor nodes and shit, probably, but at the moment, sustain RF very easily and still have a lot of regen on top of that. And yeah, we got Zealotry attached to Divine Blessing and Life Tap, so that's just basically a temporary buff for Zealotry. Over here we got Flame Dash, Assassin Mark, Arcane Surge. Down here is Tempest Shield, Determination, Purity of Fire, and Enlighten. We've got Vitality, Righteous Fire. It'll turn into a Righteous Fire when I can be fucked. And Defiance Banner. Here is Shield Charge, Faster Attack, and Inspiration, just so I can proc Inspiration quicker instead of purely from casts. And then Flasks that all do charges when you are hit, since we are hit pretty routinely while just standing around and blocking and stuff. And that's the build for now. So it's still going a bit further with levels and all that, but hopefully it works out well enough in endgame. It's possibly going to land somewhere in between what I want. Like you either go all damage or all defense, and it might be somewhere in between, like fairly defensive, kind of damage heavy, but not quite in either direction, and that might leave you in an awkward spot. But we'll wait and see. Hopefully it does have enough damage. It's going to be pretty clumsy to play though with the lineup of the correct things. And the MTX, just Aesir Warrior set with the Divergence character effect. So that's all there is to it. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.